What's today?
Not
It's Bays.
no, not hot. Something Italian.
It's Bays. Bays Nissan.
Oh, never mind. Baby.
Okay. Hello. This is my daughter, Mariasha Esteralevsky, and she's on a scoot. We're getting some fresh air in Central Park of New York City. And I'm gonna let her go ahead a little bit so we see her in the background, but I'm gonna turn around. And now we'll talk about the Parsha. The Rebbe says a fascinating thing. I'm Chaim Olevsky from Chabad of the West Side, New York City. And we have a beautiful thought for you for this week's Torah portion. It's actually a talk the Rebbe speaking to a woman in 1962. This was a talk to what they called Nishei Ubenot Chabad. There was an organization, and so the woman would gather. It was an organization. They did all kinds of work, and the Rebbe empowered the woman in special ways. Always noted that they were the mainstay, the main powers in the home, and the influence in the home. The Rebbe credited to the woman far more than the men, and because of the influence, there's also the responsibilities. And I'm going to share a thought that I heard today, and yesterday I heard a few times. So the Parsha is Vayikra. It's a whole new Chumash of Vayikra. Vayikra is Leviticus. It's the third book of the Torah, and it all talks about primarily the work in the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash. And the primary service in the Holy Temple was sacrifices, the offerings, the korbanot. The Rebbe said a fascinating thing about the sacrifice. He said, the way we translate today in English, is sacrifice, which means you're giving something up of yourself. The Rebbe said the korbanot and the sacrifice to God in those days and today is not a sacrifice in which you lose something, in which you're giving something up. It's a different kind of sacrifice. It's a dedication, and it's a dedication that from which we all benefit. We don't lose, we benefit from it. We gain from it. The Rebbe said that when you dedicate your life to God and commit it, Shabbat Shalom, then you get the blessings you and your family need. And not only that, but contrary to popular opinion, it's not how much you have often, but it's what you spend it on. So the Rebbe said when we're dedicated to God properly, God blesses our material, our wealth, our materialism, our materiality, the funds we have, that we should only need to use them for positive purposes, for things that we need. And they won't go to waste on other things that we don't want to spend them on. So there's a blessing in the blessing itself. So that's the first thing he said about the sacrifice. And then he goes into detail. And he said that in the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash, or in the Mishkan at the time, there was a korban, the main sacrifice. It's called the korban tamid. Tamid means eternal, everlasting, continuous. Tamid, always. But it was really only once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And that one sacrifice was a sacrifice that represented all of Israel. All the Jewish people contributed to that, and they benefited from it, from the blessings of that sacrifice. But he said everyone only contributed a little bit. It was the half shekel that they would collect once a year from all the Jewish people. So everyone gave just a teeny little bit, but the benefits were to everyone all day long, not just in the morning and in the afternoon when they offered that sacrifice, but the benefits were throughout the day. In the sacrifice itself, let's move on. There's Mariasha, she's waiting for her tati. In the sacrifice itself, the components of the sacrifice were the three categories. There are four categories within existence, as explained in the Kabbalah, in a tradition. We call them datzcham, from the bottom up. Domim are the inanimate, rock, mineral. Tzomeach is the vegetation, all living things that grow. Chai are the animal kingdom, and Midaber are the humans. Those are the four categories. Now, in every korban, the Rebbe noted in this talk, and there's many such ideas, every korban there was offered three. The Kohen, the person who offered it, was the Medaber, was the highest level. But then all other three they were included in the korban. So they would have an animal, was a shepsel, the Rebbe said, a lamb that was offered on the altar. And most of it was used for food for the Kohanim, for the priests. But that which was offered was the lamb. That was the chai, that was the living animal. There was also wine and flour. Wine and flour come from the living, from the vegetation world. And there was also salt. Al kol korbancha takriv melach. Every offering must have salt. Parenthetically, that's why today, every Jewish home, before we eat bread, not only on Shabbos, but every time, but especially on Shabbos, because it's more commonly known, we dip the challah into salt. We dip our matzah into salt. Because the salt, it is all kol korban chatakriv melach. Every one of the offerings had to have salt. And today, our home Shabbat table, our regular dining room table, is an altar for God, and on which we also dip our bread into salt. So, those are the components of the sacrifice of the offering then. It's the korban tamid. There's the animal, there's the vegetation, there's the mineral. The Rebbe says that we too, in our daily offering, need to contribute in all of these categories. In everything we do, we should give a little bit of those four categories to God first. First give to God, and then go on with the rest of your day. And when you do that, the blessing will rest on everything. So there we have those ideas. Now, the Rebbe didn't explain in the Sikha, in the talk, what exactly does it mean for us in this specific talk. He just mentioned that we need to contribute these three categories of domem, someach, and chai. The inanimate, the vegetation, the living, and the animal. So there are many talks about this in different places. And right before this talk, I called up Rabbi Asi, my lifeline, and asked him what is the Rebbe talking about here. So he told me, and here I'm gonna challenge whoever's watching or listening. If you have other ideas, I'd love to hear them. What does it mean that we should contribute from our inanimate, from our vegetation, from our livestock to God? What does that mean practically, technically? So Rabbi Yassi told me a take that's more of that is explained in other places, that the inanimate is the things that we do, is our actions. In our psychological makeup, our human makeup, we have different categories of working, of doing things, of activity. So the action, the maisa, is our action, that's the inanimate. Our feelings are constantly growing and they're changing. And those are the midot that is represented by the world of tzomeach, the vegetation. And our intellect is wandering and exploring, and that is, and every living thing does that too. So that is our intellect. Our intellect is represented by the living, the animal kingdom. So we, Rabbi Yassi was telling me that the Rebbe explained in different places that these three categories on a spiritual level are our actions, our feelings, and our intellect that we need to commit and contribute to God. That's that part. Now I'm going to continue with another one thought that the Rebbe said in this talk to the woman in 1962. And he was saying that on the Mizbeach, on the altar, the first main part, or the first part of the actual sacrifice ritual was to sprinkle blood on the altar and put the fat of the animal on the altar itself. So you have the blood and the fat that gets burnt on the Mizbeach, on the altar. The Rebbe explained that these two things, the blood and the fat, are representative of our own blood and fat. And the blood is representative of the warmth, the enthusiasm that we have. That, and the fat is represented by the things in which we have pleasure. You know, the good juicy steak, the fat is the best part, right? So the Rebbe said that in the Jewish home, the Jewish perspective is that our blood, our warmth, and our enthusiasm needs to be dedicated to God. That's what we put on the altar. It should be to holy things. And so too, that in which we take pleasure, the things that we have pleasure in should be holy things that are dedicated to God. And that's the story of a sacrifice that is not so much of a sacrifice as the Rebbe, because when you offer it, when you sacrifice, it's all in your benefit. You're gaining from it. And thank you for listening. Please internalize and share as you can. God bless you. Say bye to Maryasha. Can you wave? She's waiting for me. Take care. Be healthy. Be safe. God bless you.